Hello and welcome to another episode of Virtual Coffee with Ashish. Today I'm talking about culture, and I know we've been talking about infrastructure as code for some time. If you go back to a couple of episodes before with Barak from Bridge Crew, and today I just wanted to switch gears and talk more about the cultural side of it. It's great you have a tool that you like and you want, and how do I get about going this through this the culture of the organization, what's involved, the people and process, and a lot more. But before I do that, I want to do a quick shout out to the sponsor, as always, Exonius. Thank you for this. And let me just bring on Nathan because he does this much better than I do.
Hey, Ashish and Cloud Security Podcast listeners. Thanks for giving Exonius the opportunity to sponsor the show. Exonius does exactly three things. By connecting to existing data sources, Exonius gives customers a comprehensive asset inventory, both cloud and on-prem. It then uncovers security apps, and finally, it automatically validates and enforces policies. Thanks again, and check us out at exonius.com.
Sweet. As I told you, Nathan does it really much better than I do. So, without further ado, I just want to do my quick, hygiene check. This episode would be available as an audio on the podcast episode, which is right at the bottom. That's the title, and this will be later on available on YouTube. And I just saw my dog walk past this live stream, so I hope my dog doesn't bark at this. So, to bring my guest online. Yes, it's we're doing this. Yes.
Yeah. I love that song.
This is how we roll.
Yeah. Final countdown.
That's right. I'm glad you came in, man. I'm really happy you came in, Yoni. I know we've been talking for some time. I've got a clubhouse room going as well for this, but we have a tradition. So if you can.
Oh yeah, I've got my mug here.
Oh, well, your mug is bigger than mine, but cheers, man.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming to the show.
Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story about what I have in the mug. So
go for it. I'd love to hear it.
So today is the night of Passover. It's a Jewish holiday.
Happy Passover. Happy Passover.
And first of all, on the first floor of the house now, it's complete insanity. So my wife is in the organizing and cleaning and flowers and food and all that. So I ran away to one of the rooms up here. Yeah. But also, as of tonight, we're not going to be allowed to drink beer for a week. So I thought it would be a good thing to bring.
Right. So wait, is it after tonight?
Yeah, well, in about 2 hours is the real.
All right, we'll definitely get into the window very quickly just before that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of like, I got 2 hours that I can still drink here, and then no bread, no beer, stuff like that for a week.
Without going too deep into it, I think will be a lot of bagels and candles at the table.
It's called matzahs. So it's unleavened bread. So if you think about bread, normally you let the dough rise and then you put it in the oven and it rises even more. So this kind of bread doesn't rise. It's flat. It's like cardboard flat. It tastes good, but yeah, that's what we're gonna eat for the next week.
Oh, there you go. I'm sorry, it's way too early at mine, which is on, like you said, breakfast, and like. That sounds like a good idea. So I completely got in a very different rabbit hole. But coming back to this one, thanks, Yoni, for coming on, man. So for people who may not know of you, I guess, how'd you got to your current role, and tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Yoni. I'm originally from Israel, although I live in the U.S. now, in California. And my background is in software development. So I got into coding at a very young age. And in Israel, you do a military service. So most people guys and gals go and do a military service. So I did one for 5 years in the IDF, in the Israeli Defense Forces, specifically around cybersecurity. So that was my foray into cybersecurity. Until then, I was more of a developer. But then, age 19 to 24 was my time in cybersecurity. That's generally my background.
Wow. Okay. And that's how you got into cybersecurity?
Yeah. So I got into it through the military, and then I started working at a company called Checkpoint. They're a firewall vendor that is used by a lot of enterprises today all over the world.
Yep.
And after a couple of years there, I decided I wanted to start my own company, and that's in Danny and CloudRail that we're going to talk a bit about today.
Sweet. Yeah. Awesome. So my first question usually, because it is cloud security podcast, is what does cloud security mean for you? It seems to have very different definitions for everyone. So keen to know from you what you believe is cloud security.
Yeah. So to me, it's a necessity. So we, especially with COVID, but even before, we're seeing a lot of organizations going through digital transformation and spinning up a lot of new services and applications. A lot of things, for example, I order, and there was a delivery guy here about an hour ago. I ordered online for some stuff and it just shows up. And all of that are new applications and new services that didn't exist before. Now, for the application teams that build those services, it's a lot easier to go into the cloud because everything is very elastic and agile there. So it's easy to spin up a new service, a new application, compute, storage, all that stuff. Very easy to do in the cloud. And therefore, a lot of them go into the cloud. The problem is that if they don't do it securely, then I, as a consumer, am impacted. So, what I just ordered is stored in the cloud. Somebody could go and hack that. And then that could be a problem for me because maybe somebody knows what I ordered, or they know my address, or they know my credit card number, or all kinds of other things. So to me, cloud security is a necessity for our way of life and our future as well. So the more we do this, the more we use the cloud, we have to have security in there so that both the consumers like myself or yourself and everyone else here, and the companies themselves, so that everybody's secure and we're not exposed to bad things.
Yep. And we definitely don't want to be exposed to bad things for sure. So great summary over there. I got a comment back from Vinny. Good day, everyone. Very impressive journey. There you go. You've already impressing people, my friend, over here. So now, since you've defined cloud security, and we definitely don't want bad things happen to anyone, something else which you and I were talking about this earlier, and this has for me personally, I feel this is where the infrastructure as a code conversation kind of came in, the whole digital transformation.
Yep.
And a lot of people kind of have a different definition of it. So maybe if you can start with what is digital transformation, why it was required, and what does a successful one look like? I'm almost like covering the end-to-end gamut, if you don't mind. And if it's a totally long answer, I'm happy to wait.
Yeah, so I'll give you a great example. One of the things that people all over the world hate to do is go to the DMV, to the Department of Motor Vehicles, where you get your license and your car's license and all that. Because you know that if you go there, you're going to waste an entire day and you're going to come out frustrated because whatever you wanted to do maybe didn't work out the way that you wanted. It's a global thing. Every single country I've ever been to, going to the DMV or equivalent is a pain in the butt. And all of a sudden, COVID came in, and COVID had a lot of bad things to it, of course, health and people, et cetera. But one of the things that it caused is it forced the DMV to think differently, because the DMV now couldn't have anyone come in, but you still need licenses and you still need cars moving around and motorcycles, et cetera. So, for example, here in California, it forced the DMV to completely digitize. And now you can do everything you wanted to do in the DMV. You can do it online. Now you can fill out a form. You can email them, like things that, to you and I maybe look very obvious in 2021 and 2020 were not obvious in the California DMV up until a few months ago, where they were forced to do it. And now everything is digital. And I got 2 new licenses for cars and changed the address on my license. And I did all of that without visiting the DMV. That is digital transformation when it works.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God. I think we definitely went down that path, and I 100% agree. No matter which part of the world you go in, for some reason, there is always a department you just do not want to go in. You know for sure you might as well write off your entire day, tell everyone, just because, I've got a story with my license as well, but I'm not going to go into it. But so to your point, a successful digital transformation, to your point, is addressing something which is, I guess, physical in the world, primarily paper-driven or some other way, which I guess sounds like a really slow process, to a more digital world where anyone can access the information from anywhere. And cloud is something that enabled it. And I'm just going to pretend to be dumb over here. So
So cloud is what enables it, because if you think, and I was not obviously in the DMV's process myself, but if I look at it from the outside, I see that they built new applications, and I see that those applications are running on a cloud provider. You can actually look at the code and see, which one they're using. And we won't get into that here, but you can see that they actually built those applications using a cloud provider because they knew that they need to do this rapidly. People can't go to the DMV. We have to solve the problem quickly. Let's figure out how to do it really, really fast. And spinning up infrastructure in a normal sense and kind of on-prem type infrastructure can take months easily in a data center. But if you go to the cloud, it's very, very fast. And therefore, they chose the cloud. Similarly, by the way, here in California, they rolled out the vaccination program. And when you look at it, if you go to myturn.ca.gov, you see, again, they're using cloud. So it's very clear that they are using it because it's a lot faster and it gets them to their goal a lot faster. And I'm all pro that. I think that's a great thing.
Awesome. So let's talk about infrastructure as code and infrastructure as code security. So infrastructure as code, why do you need it? I guess in a digital transformation, why does it matter? And let's start with the whole cultural aspect of it in terms of what do you believe is required to kind of start off the whole journey of infrastructure as code security?
Yeah, sure. So let's talk a moment about what is infrastructure as code. So before infrastructure as code, basically what you have is servers and storage in a data center, and basically IT engineers who would make configuration changes to the infrastructure. For example, they would maybe rack a new appliance and turn it on and connect it to the network, or they'd go in using SSH and make a change or something like that. So before infrastructure as code, people were basically making modifications all the time to adapt the infrastructure to the business needs. Now that creates a huge mess because nobody knows what's going on. It's very hard to track what is being changed and by who and when. And if you want to roll back a change, that's very hard to do. Yeah. So managing infrastructure historically has been a huge challenge, and a lot of tools were built to try to deal with that. But now with infrastructure as code, things are different because instead of going and making changes to a live environment yourself, as an engineer, you can actually define what is the environment that you want in a file. You can just build a file and say, this is what I need. This is what I want it to look like. And then you have a tool. It could be Terraform, could be Ansible, could be Chef, could be a whole bunch of different things. But they take that file and they build it for you. And that allows you to fully understand what you're building and how you're building. And when you're making changes to it, it's in a much more controlled manner. So infrastructure as code is really a huge solution for how we've been doing infrastructure for years, and now, making that a lot better. Now, with it, it's opening a great opportunity around security. And maybe I'll give an example from a bit of a different world. So imagine you have a house, you're building a home, okay? And you've got a contractor is building the home for you. And when the contractor is done building the home, they're completed, everything's done. Then you go and walk around the home, and then you realize that the window is too low, or the wall is not where it should be, or the door is not where it should be. And you go to the contractor and say, okay, I need you to move these two walls, move this window, close this window, move the door over there. And by the way, the roof is in the wrong direction. The contractor is going to look at you and say, okay, that's going to be very expensive. You sure you want to do that? And that's how people have been running infrastructure for years and doing security for infrastructure. They've been looking at the production environment after it was built and saying, oh, I need to make all these changes. Now with infrastructure as code, you have an opportunity to look at the plan. So imagine the home that you were building. You look at the floor plan before the home is built. You look at the floor plan and you can see the windows, the doors, the walls, the rooms, everything. And you can change the floor plan when it's still a plan and before everything is built. And therefore, it's a lot cheaper to make those changes. So similarly, in the world of security for infrastructure as code, you now do security before you built anything. And it's a lot easier to fix something then than it is after everything's built. So again, to me, it's a huge opportunity.
That's a great example. I love the plan analogy as well. So I'm definitely going to steal that one day. I've got a question here from Vinny. Is digital transformation happened due to unforeseen circumstances or the company's innovation culture? Curious to know your opinion.
It depends. I think some companies had the innovation culture before going into COVID. I can say I've been a consumer of many companies who were looking ahead and solving a lot of problems before COVID and digitizing everything. I think parts of the airline industry, for example, are a great example for that. So United Airlines, which I use often, they have moved into a more digital experience before COVID. I was using their mobile app and their website, and everything was smooth before. So a lot of companies were doing that before COVID. But I think what COVID did was it forced a lot of other companies who were laggards, who were kind of like, we don't have to do this. Maybe some government entities that were not as inclined to do something like this. It forced everyone down that funnel of we have to digitize. So some companies are this and some are that.
Awesome. Great question as well, Vineet. So now we spoke about infrastructure as code. We spoke about infrastructure as code security.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like interesting. I mean, you've got me. You've sold the idea to me. But who's gonna run this in my organization? Like, I'm gonna be this little old cloud security engineer or security engineer, or maybe just an enthusiast who's on the DevOps side looking into this. Would the DevOps team own it, or SRE? Like, who's gonna own this?
That's a great question. So, who cares about security? Security people, the people on the IT security side of the house, they're the people who care about security. Developers, and I feel free to say this because I'm a software developer in my origin. Developers don't really want to spend time on security. They care about it. They understand that it's important. I think every single developer out there understands that security is important. But I have never met a single developer in my life that wakes up in the morning and says, I want to do security today. They never do that. Like, they wake up and they say, okay, I got a ticket I got to get done. Or, wow, I have amazing architecture or design for a feature we've been talking about. They get excited about code. They get excited about building things. They don't get excited about security. So I don't think you're going to find a lot of developers who are going to want to be the security person, at the outset. But, with that said, there's been an interesting dynamic over the past 10, 15 years, and that dynamic is slightly changing. But the dynamic was developers build an application, and then at the end of their process, security comes in, kind of like, like a hawk. They come down at them and they say, I'm going to review everything that you built. This is not according to our controls. This is not according to policy. This is not according to, HIPAA and PCI DSS and all of that. So security comes at the end of it, and they tell the developer and the development team everything that they did wrong. And so developers don't like that. And naturally, developers started not being big fans of security. But I think that we now have the opportunity to change that. So forward-thinking organizations are starting to say, how about we actually build a partnership between developers and security? We get them closer. So how about we teach security how it is, what's the experience of developing code, and how about we teach developers more about security? So there's this kind of cross-embedded between companies. And I've seen this recently, by the way. Twilio, for example, posted a blog post a couple of weeks ago about the concept of embedding security and software development and vice versa. So as these teams are getting closer, we're seeing a lot more cooperation between them. And then that goes back to your question of who should own IAC security. My opinion is that SRE teams and DevOps teams can now own IAC security, because what is happening is security is telling them these are the controls and the requirements that we have of our cloud, but we'll let you pick whatever tool you want. And then the SRE and DevOps team can pick whatever tool that works for them in IAC security. And then both sides are happy because developers are using the tool that works for them, and security knows that the developers are following the security requirements. So both sides are happy.
That's an interesting way to put it. So do you reckon is there like almost like a staged process to this, or day one I come in and, hey, Mr. SRE or Miss SRE, you're responsible for ISE security. Here you go with the document.
Yeah, no. there's this saying, which I don't even know if it's true, but there's a saying about how do you cook a frog? You put it in cold water and you slowly warm it. And I don't know. I've never cooked a frog.
Yeah, well,
I don't even know.
I might Google that later. It might be interesting.
I don't know if it's true or not, but sometimes there are things that if you go all out and immediately, there's a really strong rejection to it. But if you go slowly into the process, then there's more acceptance. So if you're kind of coming from the perspective of let's work closer together, DevOps and security, or SRE and security, let's work closer together. Let's set a couple of early goals that we want to focus on, and go and pursue those goals, and then kind of do it in a stage or a staggered approach. I think that would work a lot better. But it's clear to me that DevOps and SREs are the ones who are going to own it. I mean, today, so obviously we have CloudRail, a tool in IAC security. Yeah. Our users today are largely SRE and DevOps people. There are some cloud security engineers, but there seem to be a lot more coming from DevOps and SRE because of the dynamic I just described.
Right. But that's an interesting one. I love the fact that you're kind of going slow. Are there any examples that you can share? Like, for example, I'm listening to this. I'm inspired by what Yoni said. I'm like, oh my God, Yoni mentioned I can do this slowly. So what's a good spot to start, especially if like they've already been doing cloud for some time. They've already done transformation. Sorry, it's my dog. 1 second. Let me kill my dog. 1 second. Sorry, that's my dog. My wife just came in. But hey, this is what happens in live stream. So I'm gonna drop my question here. 1 second.
Downstairs.
Oh, you do? All right. Now, so I was gonna say, let me just infrastructure as code security. I've heard you for the first time. I'm inspired. Where do I start?
Okay, so infrastructure as code security generally gets deployed within CI. So I know you had Barak from Bridge Crew a couple weeks ago. So Chekhov gets deployed in CI. CloudRail, our tool, gets deployed in CI. And then there are others as well. So generally these tools, they get deployed in CI, right? So everybody kind of goes into there. But I think when you look at it at a tool perspective, and we can talk about people and process in a few minutes, but if you look at it from a tool perspective, you need to start at a very low level with that tool. So don't stop the CI pipeline yet using the infrastructure as code tool. Start with just kind of a learning mode. Now CloudRail does that, and you can do that actually with Chekhov as well, in some way. But basically, you just start from getting visibility. You start from seeing what is happening in your pipeline, what code is being passed through, what security issues that code has. You start from there. And once you start getting visibility and you understand, okay, these are the mistakes we're making, these are the security issues we have, then you start inching things up. Then you start saying, okay, I'm going to fix, I've got maybe 20 things that it found, I'll fix 3. Or maybe I'll set the tool to enforce some of the checks that I want to have, the first 3 or the first 5. But you always start from not interrupting the CI pipeline and then slowly going and increasing enforcement. You don't go all out on day one, because then you're going to get kicked out.
That's really interesting. Would you say then security has to learn how to code then? You know how you were saying earlier that the development side is something that the security team needs to familiarize themselves with. Now, I think some people have different approaches to it. They might go, I'm going to automate something else. But do you find that like security has to kind of become almost, because and where I'm coming from this is a lot of security people have come from a sysadmin background, network security background. Like not everyone comes from a development background unless you're in application security and you kind of pick that up through pen testing or whatever. Yeah. So I always get this from other people. So I'm curious to know your opinion on this. Does that mean they have to learn Java, Python, and whatever, like become coders for this to be successful?
So first of all, I think they need to understand the concepts. There's a lot of security people that I spoke with over the years, and that I mentioned DevOps or Python to them, and they knew the term, but they didn't know what it meant. So, for example, if you ask them, what is DevOps? How does it look like? And they're like, well, it's a process that our developers use to, make sure stuff doesn't break. Like, okay, maybe you could have a deeper understanding. Or I remember one of our customers actually, that I spoke with on another. We have two products, so on the other product, he said that he really wanted to learn Python because it's an exciting language, but he didn't know how it worked inside. And I think security needs to learn these concepts. Maybe they don't need to become the best Python developer out there. I can tell you, I'm not the best Python developer out there by far. But they need to understand what is DevOps and how it looks like and how the stages look like, and peek into the Jenkins or Circle CI or whatever CI platform that you're using. They need to look in and understand what the jobs are, the stages, and how it works, and what does it mean when it's successful and what does it mean when it failed. And then also look a bit about how Python works and how your developers work on a daily basis. So I think understanding those concepts is important, and understanding those concepts is just a matter of doing a couple of online courses and investing maybe 80 hours of your time to get to know those concepts. So I think that security should do. If they want bonus points, or how they call them brownie points here in the US, then
same here.
Try and code. Yeah.
No, awesome. That's a good answer, my friend. I think when your dog likes to be part of the ISE as well. I think I could definitely get him to code some of it as well. So thanks. Yeah. Appreciate the patience of everyone who hung out while my dog was barking his heart out. So we've spoken about the job that security needs to do. Who needs to own this? Do you see, I'm curious in terms of challenges in an organization, whether it's small, big, what kind of challenges are you seeing people adopting this culture, I guess?
Well, so if you think about it, to a solution, there's always three elements. There's the tools, the people, and the processes, right? So we talked a bit about the tools. We talked a bit about the people themselves, security and developers needing to know one another. Now it's time for processes. So processes are often dictated from the top down. There's somebody that is, maybe the business owner or VP of something. They come and they say, I want to build a certain process. I want us to have a process where development and security are integrated together, or security checks are included as part of our pipeline, or there's a weekly review of software developers and security representatives working together, or we're doing it over Slack or whatever, right? But processes have to be in there so that they will end up working together. So I can take an example from our company. We have our developers, of course, and we have the security side within Indeni. And when we wanted to do cloud security, then initially it was the security side using a cloud security posture management tool that listed 100 different issues in our cloud environment. And what they did is they opened Jira tickets for the developers, and they told the developers, here, Jira tickets for you, go and fix them. And the developers said, no, we're not going to do this because it's going to take us 2 weeks to close a single Jira ticket, and it's not in the main focus of what we need to do. And, if you have a problem, talk to my boss, right? That is a bad process. That is a process that failed, right? Throwing Jira tickets at developers is not a process. It's, maybe you being lazy when you do that. So the right process is what we built after that was to say, okay, we have certain requirements on the cloud security side. Let's find a tool, an infrastructure as code tool that can implement those requirements. Okay. Now we ended up building our own CloudRail because, we looked at all this, but we ended up building our own. And now that we have that tool in place, now let's define the process so that when the tool finds issues, developers have to fix it as part of the CI pipeline. But we will only prioritize certain issues. So, once you build the process differently in a way that actually fits the different teams and the culture, now things can start working. So we've been doing that, for example, for a year now, and that has drastically improved our cloud security posture. Our cloud security looks a lot better today than it did a year ago, but that's because we understood what was failing. And yes, we replaced the tool, but we also built the right process around it, and people understood the importance of doing it. So then it became successful.
Great question, and a good segue into a question that came in. I'm gonna not try and butcher the name, Adismad, Mr. Tamar. I'll just go with it, Mr. Tamar. So Tamar has a question. When it comes to configuration hardening, how we can achieve this without blowing things up? That's an interesting one.
It's a great question. So if you're doing configuration hardening after something is in production, then that is really hard. It's like, in those movies where there's a bomb and you're trying to figure out what wire to cut, and the guy is sweaty and the clock is going back. So it's kind of similar to that. You're sitting there and saying, I hope I don't screw production. Obviously is a challenge. And I think that's why we barely see people fixing things in production. However, if you can build the right processes and you can do security analysis early in the process, then configuration hardening is a lot less of an issue, because you're fixing the configuration during design and then you're testing it. So if you have a test environment or staging or user acceptance testing, whatever you have, you're doing the hardening there already. And you can see if something blows up before it goes into production. So essentially doing the fixes early is what will solve that problem.
Cool. And have you seen examples of something that's worked if the bomb's already there and you're in the situation where you have to cut the red wire or the white wire? Have you seen something work in that situation?
Well, so you take precautions in that case. So first of all, you do it on a Sunday or Saturday, depending on your business needs and your business ebbs and flows and load. So obviously you do it during a more relaxed time. And again, you involve developers and SRE and security in the process. You don't leave any of the teams out, because you need to work together to solve the problem. I've seen it work, but it's a lot harder to do.
Yeah. Maybe another thing that I've had experience personally, and some of the other guests kind of shared as well. Maybe I can add that to it. And maybe I'd love to hear your opinion on this as well. Some of the approaches that people came up with, the way they went about it was every business has mission critical applications, right? Everyone's on board with it. Mm-hmm. No one wants to touch it. No one wants to screw with it. So, this may come across like an anti-pattern where you try and find what that most critical thing is and identify what's wrong with it. From a security perspective, if you find something's wrong with it, pointing that out would definitely get people working on it. So there's one approach that someone tried where something's that critical that irrespective, doesn't matter ISC automation or whatever, I just want this to be super secure because this is why my business is running. Mm-hmm. And then there is another conversation that I came across was around the option 2, I guess, for people listening into this, the Security Champions program, but not from I guess you're doing a software analysis or a static code analysis. You could be doing a static analysis of infrastructure as code, but you're basically trying to identify people who are naturally inclined for security. So they could be your Trojan horses. And sounds like wrong, but they're technically your friends as well, because they want the same thing as you do. They want to do security the right way because they're really proud of the code that they've written. And they want to make sure there are no kinks in their armor. So if you tell them, hey, you may want to change this a little bit. And I personally found those two options have worked in organization. But to your point, our organization may still come back and say, nah, do not care. I just want to proceed with my feature number 115. So
yeah.
Well, what are you talking about?
Not just that they don't care. It's more a matter of priority. They say, listen, yeah, we care, but it's going to take 2 weeks or a month to solve. Is that the best use of our time? Or would you rather us do other things? And we see that response all the time. But, that's one of the advantages of having executives. So if, to your first option, if something is a severe problem, you go to a VP or a CXO and you tell them, listen, this is a severe problem. And if we don't fix it, you're going to be in the news. Yeah, everybody wants to be in the news for things like this. So the executive will come down and say, "Okay, we fix this." So that is also a way to do it.
Yeah, and I think the first option is more in terms of, I guess, going to what matters for the organization instead of like as security people. I feel like we've actually gone into a state where sometimes we just like, well, my CIS benchmark says blah blah blah, it doesn't apply. So I mean, I'm obviously going with extreme examples. I'm sure there are better examples out there of people who've kind of found better options. I'm curious. was going to probably put it out there as well. I would love to hear from other people as well what they have experienced at work in their organization, because I definitely feel the culture piece is so difficult and so unique to an organization. Like option one would totally fail in a very developer-driven world as well, no matter how high the stakes. Option two would really work in a developer-driven world. So yeah, I'll be keen to know from other people as well if someone wants to drop it in. Hopefully, Mr. Tamar, I didn't screw up your first name, and we answered your question as well. Cool. All right. So the next question we have, obviously, we spoke about challenges in terms of smaller organization, bigger organization, and kind of how to find the basically a middle ground where everyone can work together. When it comes to senior management, and this is maybe for enterprise, what have you seen work well in terms of selling the idea of infrastructure as code security?
That depends on the senior management. So if you think about senior management and a lot of management, but usually in senior, it's more expressed. They think about what they're measured on very often. So, what if I'm measured on uptime, or what if I'm measured on delivery of applications, or what if I'm measured on, security of the applications and whether we have security issues. So a lot of times senior management, they think about what they're being measured on. And then they also think about what is important for the organization. And they try to align the two, and they try to make their decisions based on that, right? So if your senior manager is measured on applications being delivered as fast as possible, then when you want to sell them on IAC security, you need to sell them on, this is going to make us run faster. Why? Because without IAC security, the security team is going to come at the end of the process, right before we go to production, and tell us about all the problems we have, and then we're going to need to go back and fix them, and you're going to miss your goals, right? So that is a way of selling IC security. Or another way, if it's an executive that cares about security a lot, then you sell them about, this is going to help us build a more secure environment and meet our cloud security requirements. So I think it's you need to understand how the executive thinks and what moves them. A couple of days ago, I was talking to a CTO at a big financial organization, and he said he cares about regulation because as finance, there are a lot of regulations, and the biggest thing for him is not violating any of them because he knows that's going to really hurt the business. So anything that makes sure that they're following regulation and and they're not going to fail an audit, he cares about, and therefore ISC security is relevant for him. It depends on what motivates the executive.
So what kind of support can we expect from a senior management for this, something like this then? So I guess to make it successful, and now this kind of answers the why that they do it, because they have obviously they're aligning it to what they're measured against, and in some way aligning to what the business is going towards as well. Like what kind of support that can they provide? So maybe because we have a few senior management in the crowd as well. There may be CXOs. So how can they support this in their organization or drive this in the organization?
So I would start with the people. I would start with working with the developers, security, SRE. I would work with the people and help them see the need and help them see why it's important for the organization and why it's important for their roles to do this and to be part of this. So that's the first thing I would handle. The second thing, I would help them select tool and provide budget for that tool, because good tools cost money, and therefore, you need to make sure that they have the money to buy it. Because if you tell them go check out a tool and then the tool comes back with a $15,000 price tag, and you say, oh, I can't do that, then you have to make sure they have the budget. So it's the people, then the tool, and then once the tool is selected, you help them think about the processes and you help identify an individual responsible for building the process together. So I think as executives, you start by helping people understand why this is important, giving them the resources they need to choose a tool, and then helping them think about the process, or at least finding an individual that can help them do that. And that way they will be successful with it.
Awesome. Great answer. I've got a question here I just want to quickly address. Hey, Samuel. Hi, all. Off topic. Samuel, feel free to message me, man. I think I'll be happy to help you with your cloud security question. I agree it's an off topic, but I just wanted to address that. I did see you, and I'll be happy to kind of help you out, man, when you kind of message me on LinkedIn later on. Cool. So we kind of covered like a lot of spectrums in infrastructure as code security from a people process perspective. Keen to know now, how do you measure this, that you're doing well in implementing this in your I guess organization?
Yeah. I'm so first of all, I can tell you I'm big on measurement. And you mentioned senior management. Senior management generally is also big on measurement. In well-functioning organizations, senior management, CXOs, VPs, executives, they're big on measurement. They want to understand how this is now better. If the score before was 10 and now it's 90, that's good. Or, the graph is moving up. By the way, I can see that I think my image is reversed. So I'll do this.
That's right.
This is on the bottom left, right? So
that's right.
Okay,
cool.
So you want to do this, right? So whoop, you want to go up. That executives, they like graphs. It needs to go like this, right?
Yeah.
So they're big into measurement. So when we looked at IAC security and measuring IAC security, what we did was we said, okay, let's look at how many cloud security issues we see in our live cloud environment, okay? And then let's see out of those, how many actually get solved and how much work it was to solve those issues, right? And usually when you're solving a problem in your live cloud environment, it's a lot of hours, a lot of days to solve a problem, okay? So you start with that. And then you go and say, okay, I'm going to implement IAC security. And what I want to measure is how many issues are found by my IAC security tool. And then how are they resolved over time? So let's say it started with, it ran 150 different checks. And out of the 150 different checks, 17 were violated. You had an issue. Okay, how long does it take me to resolve those 17? And how many of them were resolved? Is it all the 17 or maybe just 12? And then I look at that over time. So I want to see how the security of my infrastructure as code, or my infrastructure, how it improves over time. And that's the way that we measured it. And it showed a lot of success for us. And we actually see the vast majority of cloud security issues that we solve are within IAC security and not in public cloud security or the analysis of our production environment. So we see that in the data, and I think everybody is going to see similar results in the coming years.
That is awesome. I think that's a good segue into a question that came from Nanika, who's an avid listener as well. Any recommendations embedding compliance standards like HIPAA and PCI to the development team? We create JIRA tickets, but like you said, we get pushback from the dev. And can CloudTrail help? Oh, CloudRail help. There you go.
Yeah. And by the way, the CloudTrail, CloudRail thing that happened to you now happens sometimes. So people.
I was gonna say like, I should have just not heard that.
Or well, we called CloudRail because it's guardrails for cloud.
Right.
It's really up our alley, right?
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, but it can sometimes confuse. I know I've made that mistake a couple of times as well.
No, but it definitely makes it easy to remember, though.
Yeah. So just to answer the question, you need to think, first of all, sit with the development team and understand what technologies they use. So are they using infrastructure as code? Are they using Terraform or Ansible or Chef or Puppet or anything like that? And what environment is this in? Is it like, AWS and Azure and GCP, or is it a different environment? But first understand how they look at the world. Okay. Understand how their DevOps processes look like and how they're building their environment. DevOps is CI and CD. So how does the continuous integration work? And, how are they merging code together? And then also look at how they're deploying the code. So first, understand them. That's the first thing I think you need to do. Once you have, then you can start talking about tooling. So CloudRail, yes, can help with something like that. And we help teams actually enforce compliance standards by taking our tool, CloudRail, and injecting it into the CI pipeline. So what it does is it looks at like something like Terraform. So let's say you have do this side. So I have a Terraform plan. It goes into CloudRail. CloudRail checks to see that it's secure and meeting all of your compliance standards. And if all is good to go, then it can continue through. If not all is good to go, it gives a thumbs down, stops the CI pipeline, and the developer is notified with what the issue was and what they need to do to fix it. So definitely we can help with that. But before you even look at a tool, I would recommend go to the development team, understand how they see the world, understand their tooling, their technologies, their processes, and then look at, okay, what are my options for helping here? And I think they will also respect your recommendation a lot more when you understand their world.
Learn the game. Learn the game.
Yep.
So that's pretty much it. Hopefully that answers your question, Annika. I've got one more question before we switch to fun round. What do you feel like? Where's this going with infrastructure as code security? You know, we kind of touched about CSPM earlier as well. It's kind of like it's almost like few generations have kind of happened already in cloud security world. Out of curiosity, where do you see this go? And I guess, is there something that we should be talking about we haven't started talking about yet?
So what are you? So I think, okay, I've been in the industry for many years, over 2 decades at this point, and you know we've seen technologies change. We've seen servers go into virtualization. We've seen security become more advanced from non-stateful security to stateful inspection. We've seen all kinds of improvements over the years, but I think infrastructure as code as a concept and security for infrastructure as code is a huge leap that we haven't had in many years, a huge leap forward in our ability to do things right. So I think it's going to change the future. I think that anything that we do today around cloud and even non-cloud environments, everything is going to change because now everything is described in code, and it's a huge jump forward that, again, I haven't seen in many years. What I think is going to happen 5 years from now is that really almost everything is going to be in code. So even organizations that are not using IAC today, they're going to use it in 5 years because there's no other way. I mean, there's nothing else that makes sense. I'm a logical person, and most people here, I think, are probably logical. And there's no other logical conclusion other than having everything in code. Infrastructure as code, policy as code, other as code acronyms, those things, it's the only way that makes sense. And I think that's what we're going to see. Everything is going to be in code in the coming years, and it's going to be to our benefit.
Awesome. That's a great answer as well. As you mentioned it, I just imagine in my head, the AI machine learning world has started talking about no code. Now they have algorithms that pick up, and you don't need to write code anymore. I'm like, oh, that's like, I never heard that and felt, is that even real? Like, how would you do something without coding something? But you're coding somewhere to get to a no-code place. But I'm not gonna be the judge for them. But I love what you said. I definitely believe the future is going to be primarily in a code. So tools like this are, in terms of static analysis of tools of the code, whether it's your infrastructure as code or something else that you're doing as a policy, I definitely feel they definitely have a real chance of surviving in the future. So great question, and a great way for me to segue into my fun questions. Great time for timing as well. 3 questions. What do you spend most time on when you're not working on cloud culture, security culture, or even Cloud Rail for that matter?
Gardening.
Gardening.
So today, actually, this morning, it's Saturday, and I spent the morning gardening. It's spring here in the northern hemisphere, so I've been planting my peppers, my sweet peppers, jalapeno. A lot of different things that we have here in the garden. Actually, so you see this? Life is a garden.
Life is a garden. Oh yes, like that totally. That's a massive giveaway. I should have just picked up on the T-shirt instead of waiting for you to answer it. I guess Yoni loves his garden. Really,
yeah, I'm really into gardening. I love it. It clears my mind. I love playing with the soil. It's just, I love plants. It's
awesome. I'm gonna take some tips from you because I need to plant some. Apparently, my wife's been telling me I need to plant something. But, anyways, what is something that you're proud of but is not on social media? On your social media?
I don't even know if I can talk about it. So remember, I've had 5 years in the IDF.
Yeah.
So I was proud of some really amazing things we've done there. What I can say is for one of them, we won the Israeli Security Prize. So I got to meet the president of Israel for one of our.
Wow. For real?
Yeah. But
wow, that would definitely go down in history. Did you get a picture? Like, was there like a selfie moment, or was there no selfies?
No selfie. Everybody was like, security intelligence people, so nobody can do any selfies. But I got to tell you, like, there are things that I'm really proud of that we did there, the team did there, that helped everybody, helped all the Israelis, but then also non-Israelis, everyone around the Middle East, and I think we've helped people have a better life through what we were doing there. So
awesome. That was a great answer, man. Maybe it sounds like an offline conversation. I'll definitely let you know about the IDF, what you did in IDF. So final question, what's your favorite cuisine or restaurant that you can share?
You're going to laugh. McDonald's.
Oh, Happy Meal? Is that like, oh, really? Like, dude, gardening, you're producing your own jalapeno, and then you land on McDonald's after that.
Listen, I cook a lot, and apparently I cook well. Like my family loves the food that I make, and jalapenos, for example. There's some amazing things you can do with jalapenos, and I grow onions, and so many and herbs and all kinds of things. So I cook a lot, and I enjoy cooking. But if you tell me, okay, we walk out of the house, what do you want to eat now? Then my answer is going to be McDonald's.
Oh. Dude, you and I cannot be friends anymore. That's it. I would come to your house and take some of your veggies, like your jalapeno, but what are we having again? Oh, we're not having this. We're having McDonald's. Like, what?
I think after 50 minutes of conversation here, I managed to turn everybody off now with that comment.
Yeah, like everyone's turned off. Like, this guy is in McDonald's. But although I'm pretty sure McDonald's stock prices just went up as well after that as well.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But dude, this was really awesome, man. I do appreciate you coming in, and great answer. I don't hate you for liking McDonald's. I'm just gonna try and unlearn McDonald's out of you, I guess, if I can, and go more vegetables yourselves. But I really, sorry.
What do you like? What cuisine do you like?
So for me, funny enough, I've recently been into a lot of Israeli food. I've made a lot of Jewish friends. Babka is. I'm dying to try babka. Like a friend of mine, she's promised me she'll make me babka one weekend. So this Passover, I'm waiting for my babka. I need to message her again. Like, hey, where's my babka?
Wait a week. You're not allowed to eat babka in Passover. So wait a week.
Right. Oh, no wonder she's not making it. Oh, okay, fair enough. All right, I'll message her after a week then. I was like, good to know now. Good to know. Yes. So. I do appreciate this, man. I think I would love for people to kind of have a follow-up conversation with you if they're keen. Where can they find you on social media to reach out to you?
So on Twitter, I've got a Yonadavel, Yonadavel, and I'm very so. Anyone here who's not on the Cloud Security Slack channel that you and I are on, and many others are on, if you're not on it and into Cloud Security, get on it, and you need an invite, so you can reach out to Ashish or myself and get an invite. Get on there, and I'm really active there, so you can reach out to me. Just DM me on that Slack.
Yep, awesome. That's great response. So we've had a few more comments came in, but I think they're all relevant as well. I think Pyle came in with a comment with the biggest challenge in big organizations are making dev teams adopting to best security practices much before tools highlight issues. Most of the time, it is rework, redeployment, and gets delayed because of that. So very well said. Mm-hmm. I've got Nanika as well. Other topics I'll honestly appreciate is policy as code and compliance as code. All right, I'll definitely bring that on, Nanika. So thank you for that. Thanks, Vineet, for a great session. Learned a lot of new things. Nanika, you've learned something as well. So that's awesome. Like, there you go. People are already getting more value from it as well. But with that said, I know I'm mindful of your time as well. And so I would love for you to kind of come back. I love the fact that everyone that I've brought into as a guest on the podcast so far, people I want to bring back. So I'm looking forward to having you back again soon, my friend. But for the moment, I will see everyone else next week, and hopefully I'll get you back on this soon as well. But I hope you have an awesome rest of the day, man. Enjoy, celebrate the beginnings of Passover.
Thank you very much, Ashish, and thank you for having me here and for the time. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully,
Same here, man. I enjoyed the conversation as well. All right, I'll catch you soon then.